YouTube, what is going on? Back another Wuthering Waves video. We're playing Wuthering Waves. Still recovering, I'm not gonna lie to you. Kind of rough out here, man. It's kind of rough. But I wanted to get this video out as quickly as possible. Really going over Roccia. Because the thing is that while I actually am a fan of Roccia's gameplay, and I actually think that they're one of the more fun characters in the game, I'm going to break down why you could safely skip this character if you already have an S6 Sanhua, or even, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, I just don't think this character is really worth it in general from a meta perspective. Again, I think their attacks are unique. Their design's pretty sick. The Mamma Mia, like the whole thing is cool. But from a meta perspective, it really doesn't seem like it's very much needed, right? So who is Roccia supposed to be supporting? Well, Camilla. This is Camilla's best in slot 5-star character. Now, there's a few things about Roccia that I don't like that we're going to go into in a moment, but they are technically the best in slot, right? So when you go to the outro skill here, it says the incoming resonator has their havoc damage amplified by 20% and their basic attack damage amplified by 25% for 14 seconds. Now, that's exactly what Camilla needs, right? Camilla needs the havoc damage as well as the basic attack damage. So in your mind, it's like, oh my god, this is great. And from the IGN footage that we've seen from if actually testing her in the story, her concerto energy regen is really not that bad, and her forte stacks are really not that bad to get either. But it is substantially lower than Sanhua, right? And so there's quite a few things here. Bringing up Sanhua real quick, I'm just going to be honest with you. Right off the bat, even before we bring up Sanhua, Camilla's best in slot, sub DPS is Sanhua at the moment, and that is a free unit. You get that character for free. They've been on a bunch of banners, and you have tons and tons of time to acquire this character. So unless you're a newer player, you probably don't have S6 Sanhua. Although, even though, again, I still wouldn't spend money for this, right? We have to look at the landscape of what's happening. Roccia is going head-to-head with Jinxie, who's a massive, massive top 3 DPS in the game, if not possibly the best DPS unit in the game. AoE and single target, they're just absolutely broken. Again, free to play to use. They have Yanwu. And then you also have Phoebe and Brant, who already got confirmed. Phoebe most likely is going to be some sort of Spectro DPS, and Brant, I don't really know what Brant's going to do, but hopefully they synergize with Chang Li. The competitions look a little stiff for a character like Roccia when you do have, again, a free character like Sanhua, who their S6 is honestly just super solid. So Sanhua, before I even get to the S6, their concerto energy regen is the fastest in the game. It's second to none, and their outro skill is giving a 38% basic attack buff. Now, you're not getting that havoc damage bonus, so the normal attack buff is going to be a little bit less, but you are overall getting a higher buff because you have havoc and normal attack. Here's the thing, though. Her concerto energy regen, as I said, it is so fast. It like, her field time is, bro, you skill, let the crystal hit the floor, burst, do the forte, and you're good. You're set. Maybe excuse me, maybe you need to do one dodge or one attack, and then you could just activate your Heron and outro, and you're good. Like, she's just super simple. But with her S6, it says, after an Ice Prism or Glacier detonated, all team members' attacks increased by 10% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. So you pretty much get an additional 20% attack just for using her kit as well. So when you really look at it, Camilla's not sitting here struggling to clear any content, although maybe I should stand corrected on that new middle tower, but anything that doesn't have havoc resistance, Camilla shreds. I mean, realistically, Camilla is just one of the best units in the game, right? And so when you look at the fact that she's already at such a high echelon, I would use 2 arms, but I can't lift this arm yet. When she's at such a high level meta-wise already with a free-to-play unit, does it really justify for you to spend money to get Roccia, right? So now, let's look a little bit further into Roccia's kit. There's quite a few things here that I don't like. And now we're talking about S0. We'll get to S1 and S2 in a moment first. But so in Roccia's kit, she will have way longer field time. She's going to have longer field time, and she will do more damage than Sanhua. Sanhua doesn't really do damage. No one uses Sanhua realistically for damage output. They go in, they drop the forte or whatever, and then they're out, right? obviously with her Mamma Mia, like her attacks, she is going to be doing some sort of damage, and she does have the AoE. She does have that CC, I should say, excuse me, where she could suck in the enemies and then do the flops. But again, while you were getting more personal damage with her, your field time is higher, and so realistically, it makes your rotations a little bit more tight, right? Especially if you're running Shorekeeper or Verina's buff. You don't want to run out of these buffs before you swap to Camilla, whose rotation is already pretty long in itself, right? Especially doing the double swap. Like, it takes some time. So yes, you'll be getting more on-field time with Roccia and more personal damage with Roccia because they're a real genuine sub DPS, not just like a real buffer. And will you get a little bit more of a buff because of that outro skill? For sure. And again, you will have that CC from their Forte circuit and their inherit skill. Yes, but is it really worth it, right? So S0 Roccia doesn't really feel like it's going to be the biggest pickup for Camilla mains. You're probably just good with Sanhua. And what do I mean by the inherit skill? So they have this thing that you can use the gadget slot where you pretty much get the tornado and you could CC cut people in. So it's like, I like the fact that she doesn't feel mandatory because it allows people to save their currency and not feel like they have to pull. Like, you don't have to pull, right? Again, which so much competition come in, so that's not a bad thing. But there's a few things here that I'm not the biggest fan of. So let's look at this. One thing is her Resonance Liberation. It says, Roccia improvised comedy begins, excuse me, deal havoc damage to the target, consider heavy attack damage. For every 0.1% of Roscia's crit rate over 50, this skill increases the attack of all resonators in the team by 1 point for 30 seconds up to 200 points. So you pretty much need 70 crit rate to get the max out of her Resonance Liberation for the attack buff. Now here's the thing. And to get 70 crit rate, it's a little rough, especially if you don't have a crit rate weapon. And her weapon is pretty trash. I'm just going to be honest with you. Her weapon, the Tragic Comedy, looks beautiful. It gives you 24.3% crit rate, but it is bad, right? Increases the attack by 12. Every time basic attack or intro skill is cast, heavy attack damage is increased by X amount for 3 seconds. No Gauntlet user is using these heavy attacks, right? Like, no one's... Zhang Liao's not using heavy attacks. Ling Yang's not using heavy attacks. I don't think Yan was using heavy attacks. Like, this is just such a odd... It's such a odd weapon, man. It really is there for just a stat stick. And so my whole thing is, like, if you have to invest in this character at S0, so you have to spend X amount of money, possibly lose a 50-50 just for a minuscule buff, but then you need to have 70 plus crit rate. You have to have 70 plus crit rate to get the most out of this attack buff. It just feels like you're putting in too much effort for too little rewards. When you have Sanhua right there, that you could run either Overture or Emerald of Genesis or just a basic training sword. Sanhua could be completely naked in terms of echoes and weapon-wise, and she still performs. It just feels like this character is honestly not really worth it. Now, if you're rolling for cons, it's a little different. If you are whaling, we get to C1 is pretty good. So pretty much the main thing you want to look at here is you get the 10 Concerto energy, you get the 100 additional imagination, which I believe is their forte, but you're immune to interruption when you're casting the Mamma Mia, right? So when you're doing Mamma Mia, you're immune and you won't have the interruption, which I feel like it's a little annoying that that's locked behind C1, right? Because it's like, just don't let me get interrupted, right? You know, I sometimes get interrupted with Camilla's Ephemeral and it's kind of annoying. It is what it is. Not the biggest deal breaker. C2 is where MTash would say this changes everything. Gamers, this changes everything. Casting basic attack Real Fantasy grants all resonators in the team 10% havoc damage bonus for 30 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. That's 30%. Upon reaching the max stats, it grants all resonators in the team an additional 10% for 30 seconds. So you get a 40% havoc bonus with S2 Roccia. Now, again, if you are not going for S2 and you're going strictly S0, I don't think Roccia is worth it. It's too much investment, especially if you are either not pulling her weapon or don't have Zhang Liao's weapon for some crit rate. Getting to that 70 crit rate is going to be pretty annoying. And again, longer field time, you have to have more tighter rotations. And yes, she might do a little bit more damage than Sanhua, but overall, is it really worth it? If you're going for S2, that's very different. I'm kind of scared to see what Camilla damage numbers are going to look like once you hit this S2 territory with this 40% damage bonus, plus the outro skill, plus the Havoc set that you're actually getting, the new one. It seems pretty crazy, right? So, um, to me, it kind of sucks that like these are kind of locked behind cons, but whatever it is, what it is. But I just don't think this character's worth it. Now, obviously, if let's say if someone said, "Well, I wanted to pull this for my Havoc Rover," I mean, I don't know why you would. Um, I guess they could work with Havoc Rover. You know what I'm saying? I personally wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pull a premium unit for Havoc Rover. You know, Donjon has an outro that gives, you know, Havoc amplification, so I don't think you really need Roccia again. She just seems like in a situation where, unless you're wailing, uh, you're not getting that much of a power spike. And even when you're wailing, that power spike is not even necessary because of the fact that just Camilla clears the content. Again, unless you're trying to, you know, go through Crownless or something, it's like it just feels silly. So, you know, I think this is a very, very safe character to skip. I think this is a very safe character to skip. I don't think they're worth it. Again, especially if you have that S6 Sanhua, it's kind of like, what's the point? You know, if you're already hitting with your S0 Camilla 200, 150, 300 ephemerals, what is an extra couple 50,000, you know, gonna do with your Roccia? I just don't think it's worth it, right? Save your Asterite, in my opinion. Now, if you want to pull for her because she's cute or whatever, fine, I guess. But yeah, I think Roccia is honestly, she's bait. I don't think she's that good. I think she's pretty mid, and I think she's a very safe skip. With that being said, let me know why you think I'm wrong, but why I know I'm right. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.